Our Wednesday edition here of our Sales Dojo. We have Marin, Penny, Mike, Victoria, and Jacob here. And today's topic, it's going to be a little bounce off between me, Victoria, and Penny, but it's really built for you guys. And I use the word built because we're going to talk about starting your career with Medicare. What are some mistakes that we've seen? What are, some tips that we give to brand new agents to really focus on? So we're going to be using the whiteboard a little bit, and Mr. Medicare agent himself here, he'll kind of help out. So Brad, I was telling them we're kind of directing this one towards Marin and Mike here about how to really start your Medicare career, what you need to focus on, what you don't need to focus on, which that's going to be what we're going to talk about probably quite a bit the most, is what you don't need to focus on right now. But how to start it, how to get your foundation, how to really become successful from the start. So this is what everybody wants to be here. Everybody wants to be a Medicare master. That's right. I know when we were talking about the Medicare and You handbook today, Marin, we were going through some figures. We were talking about reading through it, kind of just exposing yourself to what is there. That always scares me a little bit because that's at the top of the house here. And excuse me for my little third grade house. Okay.
Nice A-frame.
That's, typical here. It's typical Leander house. It's got a great HOA. But that's what we were kind of looking at with some of the stuff that was in the Medicare and You handbook. That's for up here. Okay. You're right here just starting. So a lot of people make the mistake of they want to know everything there is about underwriting. They want to know every single benefit for a plan A through K. Have you ever sold a plan K?
No, never.
Have you ever sold a plan K?
No.
Have you ever sold a plan K?
I've heard of Planet K.
That's,
No, I would never sell Planet K. You did ask.
That's an Austin hippie story for everybody who's not watching. Okay. I've never sold a plan K. Do I need to know plan K forwards and backwards? No, I don't. Do you need to know plan A? Have you ever sold a plan A?
No.
Plan A?
No.
Plan A.
Oh, yeah.
But above 65.
I was going to
No
say,
way.
yeah, but
Exactly.
we're considered it under 65.
Exactly. I'm considered 65 and up right here.
Right.
So there's certain things that you don't need to know because it's just going to bog you down. So for starting out here, I want to start with, let's start with Victoria. We're just going to go brick by brick here, salt of the earth here. What's your first brick? What is the foundation for your career? What do you base all of your career decisions off of? How you approach conversations? What is your foundation?
My foundation is starting the conversation is the first thing. Just getting them to open up about themselves, because you can't even get to the discover or the learning part of it, or what's to even recommend to them, or the ins and outs of Medicare until you get a conversation going. You have to open the door to the house.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
A lot of puns today. Just get ready. A lot of puns. Okay. Penny, what about you?
No, that's right. If you can't get into the phone call and make some kind of personal connection with them at all, you're never going to be able to do the next steps thoroughly. I mean, discovery and all the other things you might need to actually complete your service to them or make a recommendation of any kind about what they should do. So,
okay, so that's kind of a few of them grouped together. Brad, what's your foundation? What do you base everything you do Medicare off of?
Well, again, your first priority is creating a relationship with the client. You have to do that first. When it comes to all this technical stuff, eventually it's going to get into your brain. You're going to remember it. But really, Google is your friend, and Medicare, .gov. And I mean, when you have the handbook electronically, you can Control F and get right to it and read. There's all kinds of homework to do as far as learning your craft, and it's good stuff to go through that and familiarize yourself with it. But right now, starting out, that shouldn't be your first priority. Your first priority is learning how to have a conversation with the client. And most of us are pretty good with that, but it can be an art, if you get somebody on the phone that doesn't want to talk, I mean, you have to know how to incorporate and get the conversation rolling. But that's square one, and that's really should be the bulk of your presentation, really, is talking to them, developing that relationship.
I think that second perk is having the resources or access to the resources
We'll
for the
get to
information.
it.
Okay.
It might not be what you think it is here.
It's just a suggestion.
Exactly. This is
Just
a surprise
suggestion.
builder.
Okay.
These are Acme bricks, sponsored by Troy Aikman here. Okay?
I'm down with that.
But if you guys notice, mine's similar to it. Nobody here has set knowledge of Medicare, is what they base their foundation of them being an agent off of. Nobody has. No good agent is going to base everything they do strictly off their knowledge of Medicare. I was telling Maren this story here today, but Steven, who's off schmoozing people, he looked good today. He was nice and dressed up.
He did. I told him that.
Here you go. I'm going to have to clip this, send it to him. But he has a great story of when he first started with Medicare. Okay. He came from a teaching background. So he learned everything he possibly could. Did that help him or did that hurt him? What do you guys think?
Oh, I heard it.
It hurt.
It hurt him because he got obsessed with the numbers. These people that you're talking to, they don't even know that there's numbers associated. So they're not gonna care. It's very rarely you'll get somebody, like the lady I was helping with her drug plan today. She was like, "What's my percentage for tier 4 prescription drugs?"
That's rare.
And it wasn't a dollar copay. It wasn't anything because she had, when she moved, it was actually this one was tier 3. It was 26% what she was paying, but the WellCare one was $42 instead of 26%. So you had to kind of explain that too. But very rarely are you going to get somebody that knows all their numbers. People don't care really about the numbers. They don't. The numbers are the same for everybody when it comes to Medicare, except you throw in some income stuff, but you don't really have to worry about that from the get-go. The very first thing that you can do, and this is pretty much what me and Victoria hire off of. This is why I knew you were going to be good when I interviewed you in the first 30 seconds, because I knew it was there. You can have a conversation. You can talk. So can you, Mike. That's why y'all are here. That's why we were here for an hour and a half, just chatting. It's, oh God, I said, those Vermont in-laws are rubbing off on me. I catch myself now. It's crazy. But that's really what the foundation is, where we go into a lot of interviews. And within the first 30 seconds, we know if you're going to get offered, but we also know if you're going to succeed. Because I can't teach you to be interesting. And I can't teach you to be interested in him, no matter what level of interest you generate. There's certain tangible things that you can't teach. So if you can't be interesting, nobody's going to be interested in you. So really, this first level here, it's got to be enough confidence in yourself to start a conversation. Because that's really the basis of what everybody's talking about here. When it's not Medicare knowledge, it's just being able to talk to somebody. What that really boils down to is you overcoming the fear of rejection. That's what it is. That's how we have stuff that we call now call avoidance, where you might have some anxiety about click and get lead. You might be afraid to be hung up on. You might be afraid to push a little bit. I told Victoria we were trying a new lead source today, and I said, you do not hang up until they buy something. And she was hanging in punch for punch with this lady that did not want to talk, but it ended up being 10, 15-minute conversation with her. and she loved Victoria by the end of it. You know, it's having that confidence to overcome the fear of rejection, the fear of being hung up on. That's really what you have to start. And the sooner that you can just turn that fear off, go, you know what? I don't care if this person hangs up on me. Is there somebody else I'm going to talk to here in 5 minutes? You know, maybe they'll be nicer, maybe not. But I'm not afraid to call them and start a conversation. So what do you think, you guys, is what's your foundation for your career is going to be?
I have a conversation.
Mhm.
Period. You know, get them to open up. I see that when we take the lead and we get them on the phone, I've got it taken care of. I've got it taken care of. I still keep asking because of the fact, let me try this angle. Let me try one more time to ask, have they gotten it all broken down for them? All we're trying to do is be your advocate. And you're exactly right. That'd be definitely muddying up the water, trying to start there at the peak.
Mhm.
And to my philosophy here is let's get them to answer the phone. And then if we can go farther, we'll jump off into that when we need to.
That's good. Maren, what about you?
Conversation.
Same thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So what we'll do here, let me erase this here so I got red fingers later. Okay, so conversation. We'll say that's a pretty big one. We'll paint the house like right here. Okay, so there's level 1. Got it. Mr. Brad Jenkins, what is your second level in order to be a mastermind with Medicare? What else? What do you focus on next besides just a conversation?
Well, then you want to start getting into the meat and potatoes, find out what they have currently. What are they looking to do? You know, what are their concerns? Their health concerns. Then I personally, I get into, you know, what medications they take. And then move on from there. You know, you get into the building segment of their whole picture of their insurance profile. You know, what do you have? You have life insurance, you have final expense. Do you have dental coverage? You know, figure out what don't you like about it? What don't you like about the plan that you have now? You know, there's a lot of things that can tell you which way you're going to need to go. And then you get into their health profile. That's kind of down the road. But you want to start off with that. I mean, kind of ease into it, you know. But that's my take. That would be the next step after your discovery.
So discovery. Victoria, what about you?
Discovery, because right when you got them on the phone, you've gotten them to see that you're a real person, that you care about them, that just by way of your conversation with them, that you're a confident person, that you probably know what you're talking about, and you're not just there to sell something. That right, you start digging into, let's see, what do you have? Do you like it? Do you hate it? What do you like about it? What don't you? Is it a good fit for you? What's health like? You know, what's the problem, and what's the problem that I can fix? You know, that we can fix together.
Penny?
Yeah. If you don't know what's at the root of their issues, whether that's health problems and they're not having good coverage currently, or if they just want to lower their bills, or, you know, but it is discovery for sure.
Okay. So we've talked about this in some dojos before you guys were here. It's a topic that comes up a lot, and it's kind of one that I talked about here too. When you're doing your discovery, what you need to figure out is, what are they afraid of? Are you afraid of not seeing the doctor you want? Are you afraid of not, being told that you can go to MD Anderson, you can get your cancer treatment there? You don't have to go to a local hospital or somewhere that's 75, 80 miles away because they're the only ones that take insurance. You know, would you rather have a $0 premium but pay as you go, or pay a premium and not pay as you go? With the discovery and what we do, and there's a catch that I have at the very end for all of this here, because it lines up to exactly what we do on every single call. But the discovery aspect of it is so important, because the wider you can cast their net and the more that you can figure out why a person is the way they are, the easier it's going to be when you come to close. Because at that point there, you're not selling them a product, you're addressing their needs that you learned. A lot of these seniors, a lot of them kind of talking about yesterday, they're all confused. They don't know what's going on. Okay. Once you have to address yourself, say, you know what, I can tell you what's going on, but first I want to know more about you before we do anything. So do you have current coverage? One question that we bring up with final expenses, does anybody come in and check in on you? Do you have any kids that are local? Do you have any brothers or sisters nearby? These are very important questions we're asking, not only because we care. The first time I asked that question, I generally was, because this lady, she was having a really rough time. And I was like, do you have anybody that comes and checks on you? And she's like, well, I do. I have my daughter, but she only does it every few months. I'm like, that's so sad. It's like, I'd go check in on you. I was like, I'd go give you a hug if you need it. Drive you to the doctor. Like, you're too sweet. But it's figuring out that, but having the knowledge to use that information as well. Because when you're asking those questions, when you're sincere about it, they know. They really know. Like if I'm asking you, Mike, I'm just like, yeah, who comes in and checks in on you every now and then? Or if you're telling me, you just had your foot worked on, right? Who was able to help you out with that? There's the tonality and the sincerity. You have to actually care, and they'll pick that up.
Yeah.
They'll say, okay, wow, so he's not just asking me to ask me, he really cares.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when he told me that, I was like, you got your toes worked on. Oh, that's good. Make sure you still wear nice shoes when you come in. So,
Mhm. Yeah, that's good.
No, I asked you, make sure you were okay, make sure you were comfortable, and I genuinely cared.
Yeah.
And that's how I have to treat these people.
But so in that discovery, there's so many little things that you can pick up that even just by asking that simple question, like who comes in and checks in on you, that's a lead right there into final expense and life insurance. Because whoever that person that they name, if they live by themselves, that's who that beneficiary is going to be. I don't say, if you were to ask me that, like who comes in and checks in on you, if I said that it was my neighbor Bill, and he comes every 6 months, he just walks over, that person's not going to use Bill as a beneficiary. But if he goes, oh, who comes in and checks in? Oh, my neighbor Bill. God, I love this guy so much. He's helped me out. And when I need it, if they start talking about that like that, you go, okay, they genuinely care about that person. So we have a connection here. We're just making one big chain here. Because as well, too, you're not only doing it for beneficiary, also for referrals. So this discovery portion of the house that we're building, it really is where you start to think about, and I hate to say it because we're going to get salesy here. This is when you decide what you're going to sell them or what you're going to offer them. Because by having the conversation, by being yourself, but doing the discovery, you know what their fears are. You know if there are holes in their coverage. You know what they want as well.
And let's be clear, even though this is getting to the salesy part of the conversation, we're not selling them anything that they don't need.
Absolutely.
Everybody needs life insurance. Everybody needs health insurance.
Mm-hmm. And that's a big key to it as well. It's not. We have a tagline here that Brad, you want to say it?
Oh, go ahead.
What is it? I'm spacing now that pressure's on me. Want to make sure you have, what is it? Go ahead, take it from me, Brad.
I'm not sure where you're going.
Go ahead, Penny.
It says something like, make sure you have.
You know what you have.
You know what you have.
Oh, I
You
know
don't
what you're
have.
talking about,
You
yeah.
don't
Make
have.
sure you have everything you need. None that you don't, you're not paying too much for.
Right.
Exactly. So a lot of that there, and again, too, it kind of goes to casting a wide net to where if you're talking to these people and the only thing you're talking about is a plan G. And this is kind of a little bit down the road, but this is why you have to set it as a foundation first. If you're talking about, initially your goal is this person is turning 65, I want to help them get a supplemental plan. If that's all you're focusing on, I want to get them a sup, I want to get them a sup, I want to get them a sup. When they have questions about life insurance or dental insurance or a cancer policy, they're not going to call you because you're the sup guy. There's nothing that pisses that man off more than if somebody goes and buys a final expense policy and doesn't buy it through him. Because that kind of tells you that I should have brought it up. They wanted to buy it immediately. I didn't bring it up. I shot myself in the foot. It would have been something really easy to put in there. So with the discovery, you really just want to ask about everything possible, because you're never going to get that chance again. Sure, there's some ways where at the very end you can kind of rope in, by the way, have you taken care of your final expense? Or by the way, is your employer going to continue your dental, at the end? I can take a look at that too.
That's all it takes sometimes.
That's all it takes sometimes, but it's so much easier when you do it from the very beginning instead of the end, because you want as much ammunition as possible before you move on to the next step. So that's it for section number 2 there. Discovery. All right, Brad, what's your next layer after you do your discovery?
I would say recommendation.
Okay.
Recommendation, takeaway,
Mhm.
kind of a trial close, in there.
Mhm.
Don't give them any numbers yet, but say, here's, as your advisor, here's what I would recommend, and then fill in the gaps, everything you talked about that they're, concerned about.
So, Victoria, when I ask you, I want you to do it as like when you were an apprentice, not an agent. Because for these guys right now, it's not, you don't have to worry about the recommendation and the takeaway here, because this is where we're just getting you started. Okay. So after you have a conversation, after you do your discovery as an apprentice, what's your next layer?
Then the education.
Bingo.
Mhm.
Penny, same thing.
Right. You have to explain what you're suggesting to that, why you would even suggest that. Why does that take care of their fears or their needs or the things they're talking about? So it is education about how it works, how it fits with Medicare.
Yeah, you have to even give them the knowledge to even know what to do, how it even all works. That you have to empower them with that.
So this is what this little sliver here, and here I'll use blue. We'll just do a little bit
I think that's appropriate, that
little
it's a
bitty thing
sliver.
right here.
Mhm.
Sliver. Okay. Do you know why that is so little? Because you don't have to know everything. You really don't.
Neither do they.
Neither do I.
Right.
I Google so much doing this job. That's why we have 2 screens. I would get a 3rd screen if I could. But I got told, no, I can't, because everybody else has 2. And I was like, well, they just need to get 3 as well. They said, Andrew said we didn't have the desk space. But that's why I have 2 screens always up and ready to go. And if you look at my computer, it's organized. I don't have 30 tabs, but I know where everything is immediately because I use it that much while I'm in conversation. I'm always looking something up, whether it be where they live, what their house looks like, Medicaid or Medicare, Medicaid questions, whatever it is. I'm always ready because I don't have that much education in Medicare. Sure, I can rattle off different things too. I can rattle off HMOs, PPOs we're talking about Advantage plans. We can talk about MOOPs. We can talk about prescriptions. We can talk about supplementals, deductibles, whatever it is. At the end of the day, when you sell a supplemental plan, and they are all the same, the only difference is how much they cost. That's it. So what do you need to know about them? Just how they work, really. At the end of the day, the cost is the deciding factor of it. If you have a plan G that's 400 versus a plan G that's 100, nobody's going to buy the 400 one because it's the same exact plan.
By nature, they're so simple. There's no reason to muddy it up.
You can only muddy it up by trying to throw in stuff that does not matter.
Mhm.
So then now let's take Advantage plans for example. Our system that we use here internally, it tells you what the best plan is from the beginning. You have to put in what prescriptions they're taking and put in their doctors. And when it says C plans, do you know what pops up? The lowest out-of-pocket plan out there. So using our system, do you really need to know that much about Advantage plans? No.
You can read. You can.
If you can, it's like AARP underwriting. If you can fog a mirror, I got a policy card for you. Okay.
Mhm.
But what we're doing here, especially what we've been trying to kind of instill, going back to more of the relationship focus, it's not, we don't want you to have every bit of knowledge absorbed because the systems are very easy. It's super easy. There's no need to overcomplicate it. Now, eventually, will you pick up some knowledge of, like Steven's thing with the CAT scan rates to compare for Advantage plans? Sure. You can pick up some tips and tricks there. But really, when we put our information in, it tells you this is going to be the best plan for them. That's how we did my prescription plan here earlier with the lady that moved. She took 4 prescriptions. She went to Walgreens. All I had to put in was her zip code, her 4 prescriptions, that she used Walgreens, and that she likes 90-day supplies for medication. She gets her meds every 3 months. And you know what popped up? WellCare, number 1. Why was WellCare number 1? Because it was the lowest out of pocket for her for the entire year. It was like $200. Okay. I already know what I'm going to tell her is going to be her best plan because it already shows me. If we were talking about her plan G when she moved, she still had her old state rates that were $200 and Illinois was $230 for her same plan. It's already in there. Okay, we can't beat it. There's nothing I need to talk about then. So really the knowledge and education behind it. Remember, you are walking them through, just like with the script. Grab a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle here. But you're not a teacher. You're not. Those people that put on conferences, or not conferences, but the little seminars, the ones at like restaurants that have like 10 or 20 people, they go, people that are turning 65 and say, come on, I'll teach you all about Medicare. Do you know how many people call me to sign up with me after they go to a seminar that I didn't run? Like I had one lady in New Jersey who went to 6 different ones. And by the time she called me and I got her signed up, I asked her and I go, well, why didn't you sign? You went to so many seminars. You went to 6 different ones and you still have 3 months before you turn 65. Why didn't you sign up at any of them? She goes, well, nobody was really personable with me. Everybody just wanted to talk Medicare. They didn't want to talk to me. I go,
There you go.
exactly. So those people, those are the ones that when they are buying you, they're not buying your education. They're not buying your expertise. They go, you know what? I really like this Marin lady. Just something about her makes me feel good, makes me feel safe. I don't care what it is. I just like her. That's also the greatest sentence that you will ever hear doing this. And it'll humble you real quick. It'll almost move you to tears when people go, I don't care, just take care of him.
Mhm.
Like I use my guy from Chicago as an example all the time that passed away after 170 days in the hospital. When his wife called me because she was turning 65, she just goes, I don't care. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what company it is. I don't care. You just get me taken care of. Here's my Medicare number. I'll sign whatever you want me to sign. Just get me done so I don't have to worry about it. That's the mark that they're buying you. They're not buying any type of product whatsoever. And all of that, when she said, just get it done for me. I don't care. You have my checking information. You have everything already because you had it prior to, because we've been talking about this. Just do it. None of that was education. None of that was because I showed her how Part A and Part B works. It's not. It's because of the relationship that I was able to build with her and her husband when he was still here at the time. So that's why, if you notice, I don't want you guys learning all the ins and outs, because like Victoria said, it's just going to muddy it up. Because by the time that you do get to closing your own deals and everything like that, if you throw in some random things, you'll never experience something more frustrating than you throwing a little random Medicare fact in and then people getting pissed off at it. Or be like, well, I didn't know that. Just like the wellness, like your Medicare wellness visit, your very first one, it kicks in after a year. People get their Plan G and they go to the doctor very, second or third day and say, all right, I'm ready for my annual physical. And then they get a bill. They're like, what the hell, man? You just went over all the benefits here with me. Why am I getting a bill? Medicare gives me a wellness visit every year. And I go, well, not in your first year. You got to have Medicare for a year to start.
It's not a physical either.
Or yeah, it's not a physical either. So
I want to, if I can interject 1 second. This education portion, because, we've done Medicare supplements for years and our script is designed for that. Advantage plans, that's a different thing when it comes to education portion. Normally we do like a prepared statement and then, explaining exactly the way everything works. They're all standardized. Then we go into A and B. And I have to tell you, with A and B, a lot of times, we have people go online and all that. Probably half, they're probably not even writing this stuff down because I'll test them, and they're not really, it doesn't concern them. They want the end result. They want to know the answer. Is this going to cover me? Now some people, especially turning 65, has anybody ever explained to you how Medicare works? Let's go through this. But, there's a certain portion of people out there, they could care less. They want to know what it does. Tell me the best thing for me. Let's get this thing done.
And they want a guy.
So.
Or a gal.
Or
2022.
Or a gal.
Thank you.
Or
A person.
A person. Yes.
A person. But, these are things you have to determine during the discovery process. What's really important to them with that.
And one thing too that you guys are going to learn is a lot of people, when they retire, if they've been at their company for 30 or 40 years, a lot of them just take that retirement plan because they don't know any better. They don't know that there's other options out there. They just know that, well, I got to get put on Medicare. And then they have somebody in HR who has never sold an Advantage plan or a supplemental plan in their life. That's who's in charge of their health decisions. And they just go, well, we work with United Healthcare. They'll just call you and sign you up for something. They go, okay, and they'll just sign up for something. And some of these retirement plans, they can get ridiculous. It's so important in, kind of going back to discovery here too. But you always want to ask about everybody in the household if you're just talking to one. Because you'll notice there's a lot of people that are 64 turning 65 that might have a spouse that's 55 or 60. And they go, well, I'm going to stay on my retirement coverage. And everybody who's a Medicare agent is going to go, no, that's terrible coverage. You need to get off. You need to go to Medicare. Nobody asked them, oh, wait, is your spouse on that? Is that why you're keeping it?
Some of them still have kids on it.
Yeah, I've had
Spouse and kids on it? Yeah. Oh, is your spouse or do you have kids on it? Because then that shows, it just goes back to, showing you care. You're not just trying to sell them something. You're trying to actually advise them of what to do. But it's a very lead-in question that answers a lot. Because for some of the people that are, I'm 64, turning 65, I'm just going to continue my work coverage. And I go, oh, okay. Is it just, are you sticking with it because there's more than one person on it? And a lot of times I go, yeah. Because what happens, if you guys don't know, they have what they call Affordable Care Act or ACA plans for people that are under Medicare age or not Medicare eligible, where you can get a plan. Okay. The closer you get to Medicare age, the more expensive that Affordable Care Act plan is. And it's not terrific coverage the majority of time the older you get. Because what happens is your monthly premium, that could be $600-700, and your deductible, yeah, that's at the low end. For somebody who's say 62, 63, could be $700-800, and your out of pocket's going to be anywhere from $8,000 to $13,000.
What's the point?
So that's why they're continuing that work coverage. So at that point, then, and you'd be surprised at how many people they're just confused and they go, oh, well, yeah, I just signed up for Part A and Part B too. I didn't think about it. Like I just did, and I kept my work coverage. And you're like, you didn't have to do the second portion of that, right? You don't have to pay money for it. You can. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to like that are 65 and a half or 66, and they took out Part A and Part B, and they still have to have their work coverage for 3 or 4 years because their spouse is 60 or 61. He goes, yeah, I took it out already. And I go, okay, well, you're going to pay $170 every month for the next 4 years that you didn't have to, and your work and your retirement premium.
So they can leave their spouse and their kids on it and they can do the Medicare?
No, we're talking about something different here other than that.
But if you hadn't asked the question, you wouldn't have been known to tell them, hey, guide them in one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many other options out there because like you have people who have VA coverage.
Yeah.
You have TRICARE for life. We ran into another one, couple. Chant VA is what we ran into. Here in Texas, or really through a lot, you're going to run through a lot of teachers' retirements. But I've got a personal story where I wrote Michelle's aunt a Plan G supplement because her teacher's retirement that she got from her deceased husband when she got onto Medicare this January, it was an Advantage plan that was $110 a month with Blue Cross and it had an out-of-pocket of like $7,000.
Oh my gosh.
And the worst thing about it is people get put in that situation where they just get presented, here's your plan, take it. From these companies that they've been loyal to. Some of them their whole life where you're working 30, 40 years at the same company, you're going to have that loyalty and say, you know what, they're taking care of me. Now, you don't actually know if them sliding that piece of paper to you saying, here's your policy card is actually going to take care of you. You're just trusting them to say, okay, well, I'm sure you did your research. I'm sure you know what's going on. But when I was helping her aunt and I saw that document and I saw that Blue Cross charge, and she's still having to pay Medicare premium too, along top of it. And she's got copays and all this stuff here. And I go, who on God's green earth thinks that this plan is actually helping people who serve the state? Like this is abysmal coverage. But people take it.
And just because somebody has an insurance rep at their work doesn't mean they're any good at it. They're just the go-to.
Y'all know y'all are good when you sell a MedSup to a MedSup agent.
Mm-hmm.
That's when
That'll be the day.
that's when you're in the rocket ship above the house there when you sell to an agent. So I know we kind of got off on topic for
somebody's niece in another state. She said, my niece, she does this too. And so I dug a little more and she could tell I was pretty knowledgeable. I've been doing it a long time. And she says, you know what? I think I would rather talk to you because my niece just kind of started and I don't know if she knows too much. I sold against a niece and I won, baby. That was a victory for me. I'll take it.
That's good. I like that too. So the education aspect, to circle back and then head on to the last one here. It's important, but it's not as important as you think because Google is such a friend. I can't tell you how many times people ask me, well, is Medicare going to cover this? I know that Medicare won't cover the shingles shot. I know that. Do I still type it in when somebody, I'm thinking about getting the shingles vaccine. Will I be covered? One of the first things I always say, well, let's look it up.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I can go, well, from the Medicare.gov website, it's telling me that your shingles shot, if you have a prescription drug plan, is going to be covered by the drug plan. but it also looks like you do have some availability where you can purchase it outside of the drug plan. You can go to GoodRx or something like that too. When people ask me those questions, I always go directly to Medicare.gov and I read it off. Why do I do that? To protect my booty.
Things change.
And
Yeah,
things
right.
change. Like Brad was reading the Medicare and You handbook, and well, why don't you tell everybody what?
Well, I was just glancing through it because I just got my book yesterday, and I noticed one thing: when people have a colonoscopy under Medicare, if they find polyps and remove the polyps, they will bill you 15% Part B excess charge.
Mm.
So if somebody's got a Plan N or a Plan D or something like that, that doesn't cover that.
Right.
I think Plan D doesn't cover that. They're going to get a big bill, and these are things that just slide in there over the years, little changes like that. So when considering plans, you have to take those things into consideration, because if somebody gets a big bill, who are they going to call?
Right.
And you better have some good answers,
And that leads to the last portion here. And this is what it is here. This is what we're going to talk about. So, in all of this here, of you starting your way up to starting your career here with Medicare, this is one of the most important things that you need to have. You need to have resources around you. And by resources, that could be a Medicare and You handbook, Medicare.gov website, having Brad Jenkins in an office, having Penny Saylor in an office with you, being able to bounce questions off of them. But for you to do this, if you were to sit at home and do this by yourself, and you had nobody around you that had experience, you don't know, you're just going blind into it, you're never going to succeed because you don't have anybody to ask or bounce ideas off of. We find out new stuff every day. Like we did some of the birthday rule and anniversary updates and things like that. Was it Maine that had a 1 month, if you're on Medicare, they have a 1 month open enrollment every June for Plan A. So if you don't have Medicare, you can at least get a Plan A. Now, Plan A doesn't really cover a lot at all. It's more of a cost than a cover, but there is a chance for it. So having the resources handy is what kind of joins everything together. That's why we do this. That's why we do this dojo. This is a resource. We have months worth of these going over every topic that you can think of. How to close a deal, how to start a conversation, how to gain control back like we did yesterday. How to fill out an application properly, how to ask health questions. If you have a question about something, more than likely we have a video of it. We probably have 2 or 3 of it. We have the resources here to help you, but use your resources wisely. That's why if you guys, when we're on the floor, and I love people that study their craft. You want to know as much you can about Medicare just in case it comes up. But I hate it when people do it during the day. Because during the day, as Brad Jenkins says, that is MGA time, or money generating activities. Is you learning something on the floor where you take 30 minutes to read an article about the new CMS regulations on call recording? That 30 minutes that you took researching that, did you make any money? No. Did you learn a tip or a cool new closing trick? No, there's no closing tricks. There's nothing like that. And the people that sell, it's all tchotchke, BS to sell a book. You want to be generating as much wealth as you can while you're here. But you also need to have the drive to say, what, maybe I did mess up on my script, or maybe I did have a bad intro. Hey, Jacob, can you go pull some of my voicemails? I want to listen to how I sound and I want to compare. And can you send them to me so I can listen to them at home? You know, there's drills and there's things you can do. There's so many resources that are at your hands. It's the people that are afraid to use them that don't succeed. Like, there is nothing more detrimental to people that when they start off hot and then they get cool and then they get colder and then they get frozen. And when they're in that frozen state, when they haven't even smelled an application in 2 or 3 weeks, those people don't ask for help. They don't ask. They don't ask, hey, can you look at this? Can you go back and listen to this call? Hey, can you listen to my voicemail? Can you help me here? Hey, can you hop on this call with me? Hey, can you do this? Because all of their confidence just goes away because they haven't touched an application. They haven't even got past conversation or whatever it is. You know, they have this certain block in front of them that stops them from going, I have so many resources in front of me in so many different styles and so many different people. You know, I don't do it the way Brad does it. Brad doesn't do it the way Victoria does it. Victoria doesn't do it the way Penny does it. Everybody has a little bit that you can pull from yourself. But if you're not using it, you're never going to get to the top of that house. You're never going to fill it up and reach the point. You're not. Because if you notice in all of this here, kind of like we go back to, can you be a human? Number one. Can you be a decent enough human to have a conversation with another person and not sound like you're selling something? Is that difficult?
Can be, but it's important to fix it and be a real human being.
Correct. Be a human. Jacob Christ's tagline. Also, stay positive, test negative. That one, and pro move. That's another trademark. So, can you be a human and talk to somebody? Okay. Can you be a human and figure out that human's problem? Okay. Can you educate a little bit? Okay. Can you find an answer when they have a question? Absolutely. So now you guys can kind of see, and sometimes we do a little bit more philosophical stuff here, but you can kind of see why we don't overload you with numbers. Why we don't have you memorize what the Part A deductible is when you get hospitalized. How many times can it be charged per year? You know, you don't need to know about Missouri anniversary rule with supplements where you can go across the board, but you can't go up. You know, because we don't teach you those things so you don't get flooded and seem overwhelmed. Because this, all this right here, this is your script. If you really look at it, this is your script. Your conversation that you're opening. Your, hey, you know, I'm a Medicare advocate in Texas. I'm just here to help out. What's going on? From there, conversation. That's the first 5-6 paragraphs. Then that leads to discovery, where you ask them about all their other health plans. You find out about their health. You have a genuine care about them and find out what are you scared of. Okay. From there, pull out your piece of paper. Pull it out. Okay. Write a line down the middle. And this last portion here, all right, let me get Victoria on the line. She's my expert here. She's my mentor. She's going to know the exact company for you to look at. That's it. That's your whole script broken down into 4 words. It's not difficult at all. Just be a human, ask a human questions, educate a human, find a human as a resource and use them. Victoria is your resource. As am I, if you need help too. As is Penny, as is Brad. We all are.
I want to say something about resources real quick, and I learned this probably about a year after I was doing this, but the best way to learn what these plans do is an outline of coverage, and they're all the same. First part's a bunch of premiums and rates and everything, but towards the end, it shows exactly what the plan does, more than what we would talk about in our presentation. Things like home health care, hospice care, you know, it tells exactly what the plan's going to cover. And if you know that, you pretty much know what the client's going to ask, you know, and these are things that you should know. There's some very fundamental things that you should know, but that will tell you quite a bit. And I mean, you can print out that bottom part and just have it there handy as reference if you want, but that's a good resource.
Outline coverage.
And if I could say something that goes back to people, I know sometimes they want to be agents and maybe they're very analytical and they just don't believe that you don't have to read the Medicare.gov website from the first to the end to be a great agent, or don't believe when I told you day one, you know more than these people, and you are like, that's BS. It's true, because so it's when we say knowledge is not only, so you're selling yourself. Yes, we said you as a person, you're selling yourself. That's the end all be all. That's where you're going to get somebody to decide if they want to buy you or not. But I think even before the amount of knowledge that you have and they have, they're also buying you, but they're buying your access to all of this information, right? There's people who, they don't have a Jacob sitting there in the next room that they say, hey, Jacob, what's the IRMA penalty if I made whatever? Or they don't have access to the algorithms that we have in the system that we use that ranks those Advantage plans from top to bottom. You know, if somebody had on their own had to go compare prices, they'd have to individually call every insurance carrier. That would take weeks or months. We don't have to do it. Our technology has it right there in front of us at a click of a button. They don't have access to that stuff. Also, there are hundreds of Advantage plans. Our algorithm will take them all based on just some very basic criteria and rank them from top. It is correct 99.9% of the time. It has been tested. I've tried to break it. I've tried to prove it wrong, and it works. They don't have access to that. They have to make phone calls and go on all these insurance companies' websites to try to compare and write down notes. Well, this one has that much dental, but that one has that much more vision coverage, and it's a nightmare for them. You know more, and you have access to more than they have. That they. When
In
people
minutes.
say, oh, well, I can't talk about this yet because I haven't done my research on Medicare.gov. Actually, I'm so glad that you haven't, because you haven't poisoned yourself and confused yourself, and you're talking to me and we're going to tell you, and we have access to all this stuff, the stuff that you really need to know. So it's true. You have, you're selling yourself. Also, what comes with you is the technology that they need to make their lives better.
Some of them don't even have access or understand what they're reading. I mean, or get overwhelmed by the thought of even having to go to more than one website, or, you know.
Some don't even have internet. So you having Google alone, you already have way more access to technology than they do, you know?
You know, I hate to toot my horn here, but the prime example is the one that me and Christine talked about yesterday, where she had a lady who just needed help with dental. And that turned into, oh, you're on Medicaid. Let's get you on a D-SNP plan, and then we can also get you this dental plan too on top of it. You know, Christine, that's one thing I like about her is Christine will tell you when she doesn't know what's going on. It's really simple. And those are the phone calls that I am never, ever afraid to hop on with anyone in here. If you go, hey, I'm a little lost, can you hop on this with me? I go, yeah, so just introduce me. And then I'll take a look, because you get a second opinion on everything. You get a second viewpoint. You ask questions different. You interact differently. Like I love that lady because we were from the same area. So I knew everything that she knew. You know, I talked about where my parents grew up, from small towns around there, where we went to high school, you know, everything like that. Now, did I do that on purpose? No. But I did it because I was like, oh, we have something in common. Let me break bread with you before we do our dance and figure everything out. Because I want to humanize this as much as possible. Because you're not doing it through a computer. You can't do it through a computer. You could go to Medicare.gov for some things, but you're doing it with a person here that's going to help you. If I didn't ask some of the questions the way I asked them, we would have never figured out that she was on Medicaid and got her into such a better plan that she qualifies for that she didn't even know she did. Because it was just, hey, I need help with my dental. You know, some things like that. It works so well to have so many people around you, to have people on the phone, to have people actively doing it, and then using it as your own. You know, back when, so Chris over here, Chris used to be an agent, and I trained Chris. And Chris used to piss me off because I would have a certain set of jokes, like 5 or 6 jokes that I would just like work in, right? One day I caught him, and he told one of my jokes here. So one of them is, we're talking about companies. We're gonna apply to one company. We're not throwing spaghetti on the wall, seeing what noodle sticks. Because I said that one time, and he goes, "What does that even mean?" And I was like, you've never thrown a noodle at the wall to make sure the pasta's done?
So did he poo-poo it and then he turned around and used it against?
So he used it when he was doing his discovery. He was like, we want to make sure we put you with a good company, that we're not just throwing noodles on the wall, seeing which one sticks. Apparently, the lady was like, "Yeah, that's great." Yeah. So then I come in. He's like, "All right, let me get Jacob on. He'll know which company." I come in, and I'm looking, and I'm like, "This one's going to be a little bit difficult to underwrite here. Premiums are kind of close." And I go, I want to get it right on the first time. I don't want to have it decline to come back and reapply. I hate throwing noodles on the wall and seeing which one sticks. And she goes, "Oh, that's Chris's saying. Chris just said that." I was like, "Chris just said that." And I got so pissed. Oh my God, I wanted to hit him. I wanted to hit him so hard. And then he just kept doing it out of spite. But there's certain things that you pick up from people that you can use right away. Now, you also need to catch yourself sometimes, though, because there's certain things that me and Brad might say, or Penny might say, or Victoria might say, that's a very advanced technique, or something that is really way above the roof here. We're getting into something that is not an everyday occurrence.
Or we're dealing with a situation that calls for it.
Yeah, you don't really need to know that right now. Right now, at least. Day 2 of Medicare. So just be cautious of what you listen to. Work in what you can work in, but it hurts people a whole lot when they start listening to everybody and they're pulling snippets, but they don't think about that conversation, how that person's using it, and then they try to use it and it doesn't pan out. So just because I said it doesn't mean it's going to work every call for you, Mike. Or just because you said it doesn't mean it's going to work for you, Marion.
What I think one of the things is that people fall into is when you're listening, all you're hearing is Jacob or me or Victoria, our part.
Mhm.
You have no idea what context, what we were talking about with the person, why it was okay, why it worked,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
y'all don't need to be getting into the IRMA penalty with these people, but you
Okay.
might hear me talking about it because somebody said, "Oh, I'm getting onto Medicare, and I did really well for myself, and I sold my company, and I made a million last year." And then I'm like, "Let's talk about that." And then you're like, "Oh, I'm just going to incorporate that into my presentation," and it would totally blew it up, right?
Yeah.
Because there was no need for it, things like that. You can
What-
steal my jokes and my things all day long, but I think if you hear, I'm okay to share. But I think if you hear something like that, it's kind of technical. Ask what it was about before you start incorporating it into your own.
right.
Yeah.
And this
presentation.
is where it comes into resources as well too, because one thing is you're learning a great thing. If you don't know something, don't give them an answer, because the last thing you want to be is wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But don't give them answers. Just say, "You know what? That's a terrific question. I know the exact person who's going to know that. Victoria's going to know it.
Mhm.
Let me leave a note so later on, when I bring her on, she can address that." And we talk about control. And if it's something like IRMA, IRMA, for example, when we get on the phone, are we going to bring up IRMA right away? Absolutely not.
No.
It's going to be after we complete the enrollment. Then we're going to talk about IRMA. I had to do that with the lady that just moved, where she was freaking out because they bought their house the first of this month and they just moved there. And she's like, "I've got like 400 boxes staring at me." And she got in a car wreck last week. And she's in a cast on her hand, So she had a plan. She had a plan F. She had a dental plan. She had a final expense plan, and she had her Part D plan. But she was just freaking out because I moved. I want to know if I have coverage and everything like that. And I go, "Okay, let me get your new address and we'll start from there." She starts to freak out again. And I go, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. There's 4 different parts to this conversation. We're going to start with the most important and we're going to work our way down. Okay?" She goes, "Okay, we'll do that." "All right, most important, your actual health coverage. We need to check with Aetna and make sure that your coverage is still going to be available." It was a supplemental plan that covers nationwide, but I still do that. I still messaged Aetna. I was like, "Hey, I need to update the address, and we need to verify that she does have coverage." So got the address changed. I said, "Perfect. Okay, now we're on to step 2, your prescriptions. We need to get that." And that's the only thing we're talking about here. But I had to tell her because I know, okay, she's going to be scatterbrained. She has so much going on right now. She's in pain. She's hurt. She just moved. Her and her husband were both in the accident. They both haven't moved in fully, and they don't have anybody to help them out in their new city. So they have to recover and unpack while they're recovering and get everything ready. So she is so scatterbrained. So for her, I knew immediately in there, okay, I have to take control over the situation so she doesn't freak out about it. So that's why I broke it down and say, hey, we're going to do this in 4 steps, but we got to take it one at a time. And that would be the same with the Irma thing. So it's like, we can talk about Irma perfectly. You know what's more important than Irma? If you get in a car wreck and you don't have health coverage. So we're going to talk about your supplemental plan here first. So let me go and quote it and let's take a look and see. But those are the resources that you have to use. So I hope this I think we're at time now. I hope that's kind of helped build an image of why we do things the way we do, why we don't try to overwhelm you with numbers from the get-go or overwhelm you with closing tactics or, anything that, who's that guy with the first name and last name both start with the V, the salesman? It's like Ziegler, something. Zig Ziglar, that's what it is. Yeah. We're not trying to Ziegler this and have keywords and phrases and stuff like that. We're not trying to do that. No, you have to be a human, figure out their human problems, educate the human, and remember that you have humans around you to help you. That's how you become successful. It's not by knowing the ins and outs of everything. It's being yourself. And knowing when you don't know an answer, you got to go find somebody for it. So that's it for today's dojo. Thank you guys for hanging around, not falling asleep on me. Appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. Y'all have a great rest of the day and go sell something.